Oh, I don't even remember that, Georgia. She died and was reborn on the Arizona Trail a few times, I think.
Welcome back to Flagstaff Bound, a special Cocodona 250 series brought to you by Distance to Empty Podcast and Aravaipa Running. I am Kevin Goldberg, host of the Distance to Empty Podcast, where we dive deep into 200 plus mile ultramarathons just like Cocodona 250. As always, I'm joined by everyone's favorite co-host, Peter Noyes. Today's guest is an Arizona local, one of the most exciting athletes in the ultra world right now. Last year, they set the women's supported FKT on the 800-mile Arizona Trail, covering over 48 miles a day for nearly 17 days straight. Sounds to me like Cocodona 250 is going to be a breeze. Now they're stepping onto the start line of their first 200 plus miler here at Cocodona 250. Georgia Porter, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's jump into that Arizona Trail FKT. It's a huge effort. Peter and I have never done anything close to that level of thing. Have no understanding what it would take to do that. What made you take on a challenge that big, and how did it change you? How is Georgia different on the start line of Cocodona 250 than they were on the start line of the Arizona Trail?
Oh, I don't even remember that, Georgia. She died and was reborn on the Arizona Trail a few times, I think. They were. Um, I think there was a couple questions wrapped up in there. So I would say the ways in which it changed me, oh my gosh. Um, I definitely had to reorient my relationship with pain and fear out there a few times. That was a big part of my journey. I think another thing that really changed is, you go into a big FKT attempt or something like Cocodona, it's pretty much impossible not to have expectations. And so for me, there was a lot of processing out there of letting go of expectations and just being present in the moment. I felt like that happened a lot for me of constantly letting go of how I thought it should look, how I thought it should feel, and just being present for what was going on out there. Feels like I needed to learn that lesson a few too many times out there. But yeah, and then also, of course, something like the Arizona Trail, there was plenty of moments where I reached what I perceived as my edges and my limits and just had to keep going. So I think to been given the opportunity to be in something where I found like these deeper wells in myself that I didn't know were there, I think that's something I'm going to take forever with me on my journey. And so when I think of Georgia standing at the start line of Cocodona, those are some of the things they'll be carrying with them. I'll be carrying with me.
So was Cocodona 250 on your radar before the FKT attempt or success, or was this always part of the plan? And how is the FKT giving you confidence going into this year's race?
This will sound ridiculous to me saying this because I had done a couple 100-mile races and I was scared of the 250 because I was like, "Oh my gosh, you don't sleep for days." And I assumed, which was such a false assumption, that I would just get a bunch of sleep on the Arizona Trail. Like, "Oh, I'll be sleeping every night, so I won't have to face sleep deprivation." And that was so not the case. So, I think now doing the Arizona Trail, I got so little sleep out there. So I know what it's like to be in massive sleep deprivation. And I think that's a fear that I don't have with Cocodona. I think it's going to be a suffer fest for sure. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk, but I know that I can go 3 or 4 days without sleep, and that's okay.
So coming off of such a massive accomplishment, and I think you finished like early fall last year. So it hasn't been that long, obviously long enough to recover, but like lots of recency bias there with the AZ Trail FKT. How does that confidence carry you into a race like Cocodona? You said you're going to suffer. Like, are you? And this is a hard question. Like, if I was asked this question, it would be a hard question to answer because no one wants to say they're going with a chip on their shoulder. But like, are you kind of going in with a chip on your shoulder,
Mm.
like saying like, "Hey, I can do this for sure because I did this," or does Cocodona 250 still feel like this uncharted territory in sort of a different way?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, there's parts of it that feel uncharted still. the FKT, it was just me and my crew. I was the star of it. Now I'm jumping into a race where it's a stacked female field out there. And, um, you know, also with the Arizona Trail, 48 miles a day is great, but that's not going to be the case with Cocodona, right? It's going to be 3 days a lot more intense than most of the days were on the Arizona Trail. I don't feel like I have a chip on my shoulder. So I finished, I would say late fall. I think I finished in mid-November. And it's honestly been a pretty slow return to running. I feel fairly undertrained for Cocodona, which I'm fine with because there is part of me that's like, oh, it's 250. I can go 250 miles. Like, so that is the confidence I do carry. I know I can get it done. I know I can suffer well. Um, I'm not totally confident on how fast that's going to happen, to be honest, just with where my training's at, but I feel confident that if I'm not getting injured or sick out there, then I can finish this thing.
So looking at your results, you're super fast. Like you have very strong marathon and short ultra results. So curious, like what pulled you into this world of multi-day to begin with, both the Arizona Trail and Cocodona?
I was talking to my sister today and she described it as like, what's wrong with you? That was the way she phrased that question.
I
Um,
like her phrasing better than ours.
yeah, you did it in a much more like politically correct way. Thank you. Um, I think it was when I finally let go of stuff on the road and jumped into trail, it was such a just like a breath of fresh air to me. It was what my being really needed to just be out in nature and be just chasing new adventures. And I think I could start to tell as I started to increase the distance a little bit, 50K, 100K. I could just tell. I was like, these are intense, of course, and really hard. But I was like, I'm not reaching any of my edges or limits. And I really wanted to see what those were, what that felt like to really get there. The 100 miler was the first time I started to play with that. It's like, okay, here's some of those edges. So the Arizona Trail, of course, was this epic adventure to really see what that was about. What is it like to do something like beyond where your current limits tell you you can go? And um, I think also just being drawn into the idea of adventure. So when I think of adventure, I think of something like Lord of the Rings, where it's not all like the happy, exciting parts of the adventure. It's the full wave of what an adventure is. The full spectrum of things you can experience being human and going through something like that. So the longer distances really call to me for that reason.
I don't know. It all seems pretty terrifying to me once you leave the Shire, but
Of course it is. Yeah, it's not like things like fear or pain and things like that are not there. It's just I'm really interested in what it's like to be in relationship with fear, in relationship with pain. So they're not out running the show. They can be like these companions that are along for the journey also.
yeah, no, I love that. I mean, that's essentially what our podcast is kind of dedicated to in the form of covering 200 plus mile races. But like the title Distance to Empty is like we're searching for that edge, that limit, what that distance to empty is. We're just using 200 milers as an avenue to sort of get to that point.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think that's really cool. So you mentioned that that relationship between suffering and pain, and I guess that relationship between suffering and joy. Really, like what did the Arizona Trail teach you about that relationship that you'll be carrying into Cocodona?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think when I think about that wave of what an adventure encompasses, when I think back to the Arizona Trail, I knew it was going to be hard, and it was so much harder than I could have possibly imagined. And on the other side of it, I knew I would enjoy it, but it was so much more enjoyable than I could have possibly imagined. And so both of like the edge of discomfort and pushing into the hard things and the edge of enjoyment and just totally being blissed out of my mind, both of those things were present. And I think doing hard things like this, that is the reward. It's not just pushing into the hard stuff, even though that's part of it, but you get more access to the full spectrum.
So Cocodona is going to be your first official 200 plus mile race. Obviously, you've gone 800 miles, but like you said, it is a little different. You're going to be pushing way harder for 3 days than you probably were on the trail. So do you have a big unknown going into Cocodona, or what's an area that you're most thinking about?
Yeah, I imagine, with the Arizona Trail, well, I want to say it didn't start hurting for a while, but that's not even true. I started hurting day like 3 for sure. Um, but I imagine it's just going to feel more intense, you know. I don't fully have like a mileage or time goal that I'm shooting for each day, but I do imagine we're going to hit that point of it feeling intense a lot quicker than we did on the Arizona Trail. So I think for me, that unknown is like, okay, can I be comfortable reaching that place a lot sooner and just hanging out in that for X amount of time?
I think it's really smart to be spending time thinking about that, because I think one thing about Cocodona in particular that like catches people off guard and really shocks people is that sometimes that moment comes at like mile 25, and everyone is expecting that moment to come, but no one is expecting it to come at mile 25, and it is a kick in the gut when it comes that 12% into a 250-mile race. um yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
and that's like, oh, go ahead.
I just realized I got the math wrong of 25 miles and 250. It's pretty simply 10%, not 12. Anyway.
I didn't even question it. I was
Yeah.
like, yep, 12%. You seemed confident about it. Yeah, and that seems like kind of just managing some expectations, which again is something I feel like I have to learn over and over. But I don't want to go into Cocodona thinking, oh, it's just 250. It's so much less than 800 miles. That's not going to hurt as bad. I'd prefer to go in, no, like respecting the distance because it's still so insane that I know that I'm going to be out there hurting and I don't want to pretend like that's not going to happen. And I want to be able to welcome it when it does come.
Awesome, Georgia. We've been asking this next set of questions to all our guests. It's been fun to see the various answers. Hopefully, you are familiar enough with the Cocodona course, being an Arizona local, that you have these sections in mind. So, which section for Cocodona are you most looking forward to?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think I'm really excited to run through Prescott and Jerome through Mingus, I guess. I love those areas. They're really beautiful, and I have not spent a lot of time running there. So I'm really excited to check it out. Maybe some of it'll be in the daytime, maybe some of it won't. Maybe I'll be in a good headspace, maybe I won't, but I think I'm excited to see that part of Arizona because the Arizona Trail is in a very different area. So I'm excited to travel Arizona in a different way.
And what about the flip side of that? Are there any sections that you're looking not forward to?
Looking not forward to. I would say the area that I'm not the strongest in running is technical descents. And I remember crewing a friend last year, and he came into Jerome just not okay from that descent. So that makes me a little nervous. And then also the descent off Eldon. I've done it many, many times. Eldon Lookout Trail, it's changed to this year. So I know it's technical. I know it's steep. I know what's coming, but those are usually my weak points.
All right, easy one for you. What shoes are you going to start the race in?
I have no idea.
No?
Well, no, I'm really bad at planning out gear and shoes, so I'll probably make a decision like the day before. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Aravaipa team, we're partnered with Hoka, so I got a bunch of Hokas this year, so I'm sure it'll be Hoka something.
What shoe did you do most of the AZ trail on? In
Oh my gosh, I made such a mistake. That probably my biggest mistake was that I will run shoes into the ground. I'll put like 1,000 miles on them. They're all minimal. I like to have a lot of ground feel. That's not great when you're trying to like go 48 miles a day for 17 days straight. So I dealt with a lot of nerve pain. Um, but ultimately, I ended up finishing mostly in my ultras. I had a couple pairs of ultras. I won't remember the model. And I think I had a pair of speed goats out there too that ended up I was able to use because I worked through so many shoes out there that we were like, these are a no-go. I'm wearing through the bottom.
All right. And then what's one outcome of Cocodona 250 that's not tied to results or placement or time or anything like that that would make you proud of yourself?
I think that's a really beautiful question. I also have no outcome goals attached to time or place, which is maybe good or bad. I'm not really sure. But I would really like to run a consistent race. I was really impressed last year with how Harry basically evenly split the course. I thought that was really beautifully done. I don't know that I can do that, but I think running with that level of consistency throughout, I would feel really good about. And then my other main goal is for my crew to have a blast out there. It's the same crew that was with me at the Arizona Trail. We travel around together, we roll pretty deep, and they're having costume themes for different aid stations. So I think just being a part of the excitement and joy with the crew is really important to me.
I love that. That's fun. We interviewed Allison Powell as well, and she's broken her race down into like different sections based on different TV shows or movies, and her crew is like dressing accordingly. It's like a themed adventure. So
Yeah,
sounds like you guys would vibe with the Lord of the Rings and the costumes and all that stuff. I like it.
absolutely.
All right, Georgia, last question we've got for you. We asked ChatGPT how many steps it would take a person to get from Black Canyon City to Heritage Square in Flagstaff along the Cocodona 250 course. We have seen some wild answers, and we're curious to hear your guess.
Okay, well, what immediately comes to mind is I went on a run with my friend Chris Myers, and if you know him, he's very tall. And so, as a joke afterwards, this is back when I was using a smartwatch, but we looked to see how many steps we had each done, and he had done thousands less steps than me of this like 30-mile run we did. So, I do feel like there's got to be some variation in this because I have a very high RPM and short legs. But anyway, oh my gosh, I have no idea. I guess I would say, I'm just going to throw out a random number, 842,765 steps.
That's exactly right.
No. I'm a savant. I'm a savant.
It is a range. They say 350,000 to 500,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So if I count steps, then
yeah, you weren't crazy off, so we'll accept.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Remember, Cocodona 250 will kick off on Monday, May 5th at 5 a.m. Pacific. You'll be able to catch all the action live on the Mountain Outpost YouTube channel. The incredible team over at Aravaipa Running will be bringing you nonstop coverage. There will be more additional content on Cocodona 250's social channels. Follow those. If you're enjoying this series, please give us a listen at Distance to Empty Podcast. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcasts. Georgia, where can people follow your race this year?
I have no social of any kind, so they cannot, but they can follow it on all the things you just mentioned.
Awesome. Yeah, you'll be on the live stream, I'm sure, at some point, and people can cheer you on there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.